Hello, it is Helen with So Kind and Wonderful, and we're talking Floral Felicity in this video. So I have part of the quilt shown behind me. Here's the pattern or the book we're working out of. If you're doing our quilt along with us, this is exciting. We're moving on to our next zone. So here you can see we have, this is the bottom left part of the quilt. And this was zone 4, and this was 5, and this month we're working on zone 6. So for zone 6, you can see we have a sprout block, which we learned how to do last month. So if you can't remember, you can go back and watch the sprout block video. We have another ladybug. And then this is a new one for us. We haven't made this one yet. This is called Allium, and it's pretty fun. You know, this fun little, really delicate stem is in the middle. We have these really fun curvy leaves. So no worries, I'm gonna walk you through all the steps for making the Allium Block. Great. I have laid out my pieces that I pre-cut in when I cut all the pieces for the second set of cutting. So here are all my pieces. And first thing I'm going to do is just check and make sure that I have all the pieces. You know, it's listed here, but then go through and make sure, you know, that you have everything. So that'll be my first step. And then of course we can take these off. What's really great about these videos, and if you're using cottage cloth fabric, is the cottage cloth fabric matches the fabric shown in the pattern. So that's a real bonus on this first set of videos because the fabric's brand new, the pattern is brand new, and it's nice to be able to have everything match. So here are my pieces. Now I'm looking at the pattern on page 54 in the Floral Felicity book. And I'm just going to kind of review what I look at first. First thing I'm looking here, all of the words here that tell me what shape to cut are in blue text, blue font. So that means I'm using the blue lines on the Wonder Curve ruler. And remember, if you can't remember how to cut these, it says go back and look at pages 6 and 7. So back here on pages 6 and 7, we walk you through how to make those different shapes. This side right here where there's blue text, this is the side you're looking at because these are all shown in blue text. So we're using the blue lines on the Wonder Curve ruler. And the first step is just to go through and cut your curves exactly how it's shown. So this first step right here, it says we have 4 5x5s and we're going to cut antler F. That's just the name we gave this shape. And just as a reminder, or if you didn't know, the first time we used this shape was in an antler block we made in our urbanology book. So sampler book. So that's why we call it antler. All right, when I look here, it says cut 2 right side up, cut 2 right side down. So right now I have 4 of them. This is how they come off the bolt when you're cutting, and they are wrong sides together. So I can leave it just like this and it will be 2 up, 2 down. So using the Wonder Curve ruler, make sure you're not getting really bad reflections. We'll move that just like that. All right, antler F. Antler F uses this dashed blue line right here. So we put that on 2 sides of our, right there. So it just matches up with the edges. It can sit right on top. It can be right on the edge. It can be just off. It doesn't really matter because you're going to sew and square up. I just put it right on top so the raw edge of my fabric is hitting the outside edge of that dashed blue line. And then go ahead and cut in your curved cutout slot. If when you cut, you're kind of hitting your ruler as you go around that with your blade, then keep the blade kind of snug to this convex side of the curve. Okay, that gives me these shapes. The pattern tells you what you're keeping. So I'm only keeping the biggest part, which is an F shape. So I'm not keeping this one. Let's do it one more time. So these go in that extras bag. Now at this stage, I actually like to separate these because I know I have to eventually when we sew. So I go like that, and then I compare, is that what the pattern's showing me? Yes. So I have those done. We'll set those aside, and then we just move down the list. The next one is twist C, and you should have 4 pieces that are 2 3/4 by 4 1/2, and we have 2 up, 2 right side up, 2 right side down. That's how I have mine, with them being wrong sides together. And we're using that same blue dashed line. And I'm just putting the corner right here in this corner of the blue dashed V and cut in your curve slot. We keep this and we discard this. And we'll do it twice. And again, go ahead and separate and make it look like the book. It just shows you that, yes, you cut it correctly. You have 2 like this. All right, moving down. Our next one is antler F again. And then we have C and D out of this. So we should have 2 5x5s. Yes, I have 2. It says cut them right side together or wrong side together. If you want to worry about which direction the stripes in the background are going, I'm going to keep mine going up and down because it'll match the up and down on this piece. So this direction. Okay. And I am doing the same dashed blue V. That gives me these. That's what the pattern shows. Set those aside. I'm not keeping those. All right, for this one I should have 2 that are 3 1/2 by 5. And they should be wrong sides together or right sides together. And then you're using the same blue dashed V right here, line it up, and go ahead and cut in your curved slot. And I'm keeping all 4 pieces here. This is what I get. And we're keeping all of this. And then now we are looking at our background pieces. You should have 3 5 3/4 squares. I do. This one, it doesn't matter if they're right side up or right side down. You're going to cut this in half diagonally. You're making a B shape. And then I'm going to stack all those. I'm very comfortable cutting 6 layers. So at this step, I'm putting the 5 on my edges and trimming off these 2 points. Those are discard. Now, we just rotate that around. we set this up. Now this time we're going to use the solid blue box corners right here. Just put the corner of your fabric in there. Go ahead and cut in the curved slot. This is your discard. And you should have 6 B shapes. All right, we have 2 3.5 by 5s. They should be wrong side together or right side together. So both of those were right side up. So I switched it. So now I have one up, one down. We're using the same dashed blue V here. And go ahead and cut. And we're keeping all of these pieces. So we're keeping all of those. And then we have one more cut. You should have 2 3/4 by 4.5. They need to be wrong or right sides together. And you're using the same dashed blue marks. And that gives us 2 C pieces. Okay, we just worked through cutting all of these curves. Good job. Our next step is to set up our sets for sewing. All right, to figure out what sets we're sewing together, we just look right here at step 3 on page 55. And we're just going to set it up exactly how it shows. So I'm going to have the leaves are D, which is this piece. And I have one this direction and one this way. And then I'm putting a background C with both of those. So on this, the thing to remember is that this should look like a rectangle when you lay it out. If you have these swapped, it won't look like a rectangle, and that's how you know to find one with the, the other reflective shape. So we have that, and then we're going to do the opposite. So then we're going to have the background is the D shape. And this one is the C shape. And you should have 4 of those. And I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you have 4 shapes laid out, 4 sets. And then we're going to have 2 petals here. And we're going to have this darker C piece is here. And this is why I separate them after I cut, to make sure that, it's easier to find it. So we have 2 pieces. And then our next set is F again, out of our leaf fabric here. And then we're using our background C. Okay, so now you can tell that we have a lot of the same shapes. All of these are the same F and C shape we sew together, and these are D and C. So for sewing, we're going to sew both of these, and then we'll sew both of those. So I'm just gonna move those down. So when we go to the sewing machine, remember when we're sewing, we always set it up so concave is on the left side, it stays on the bottom. So D is here, C will flip over, and for this one, the pattern tells you leave a 1/4 inch tail, just like that. We're going to sew this, and we'll sew this one, and then we'll do the opposite. For the opposite orientation, this is your concave. You still leave a 1/4 inch tail. It's still the same curve, and we'll sew that. All right, here I am at the sewing machine again. Let's see, let me show you this one first. So keep concave on the left. Go ahead and flip over the convex or the C shape. Leave a 1/4 inch tail. Just get my foot where I can reach it. Okay. I'm going to sew a few stitches and then hold one piece in each hand, and I like my left hand on top and my right hand manages the bottom. And as it goes around, I'm just watching right here, right where it goes under the presser foot, and bringing curves together. There's our really nice curve. And for these pieces, we're going to press towards our focus fabric. So for this shape, sometimes we press this way towards your C piece, but I know on this one, we want to press to the focus fabric. All right, let's do the other direction. So concave is still on the left, flip C over, you have a 1/4 inch tail, sew a couple stitches. And the same. Now let's go ahead and do our other two shapes that we have, because it's the same setup. So for this one, we have F is our concave, C is still our convex. We're leaving a 1/4 inch tail, and it is the same process. And again, on this one, I know it's very specific. I actually know that we have to press towards the C piece for this one, even though it's background, because this is a 2-step block where we're going to cut this side again and sew another piece on. Concave. This one we're leaving a 1/2 inch on this tail right here, is a 1/2 inch. Okay, so pressing on this one, we press to C. So I'll press and then we'll talk about our next steps. So go ahead and sew all of your curves. Here are the pieces sewn, and let me show you the pressing. So for these two, you press towards your focus fabric. For these, press to the focus fabric here. And then these are antler blocks. We are going to press to C, regardless of whether this is focus or background. And then all of those are pressed to C. All right, now these we're going to set aside. We will square those up in a minute. But first we're going to go ahead and do another cut on these blocks. And I think this one will show it best. So here we are making the antler point. And we're going to use our Wonder Curve ruler. And we are putting the, this is on step 6 in your book. You put the C point down right here. And then we position the Wonder Curve ruler. And I just start by putting the C point in my solid blue V. And then I adjust from there. Then I actually look at this blue dot right here on the line, and I put that up here on the seam here. And then I look over here, and you should see the tip, this intersection right here. Let me zoom in. So we're watching where that sewing, where the black and the brown piece come together right here on the curve. So we're just positioning that right under the curve cutout. And then look back over here. So for this one, I can tell if I have the dot on the seam, that point up here isn't quite where it needs to be. So I adjust and just move the dot right off the seam a little bit. So it looks like that. You'll get used to making this block. That's kind of where mine needs to be, right there. So then I hold this with one hand, cut here. This is my discard. And then I just take and cut off that little point so that it's a little easier to line everything up. All right, now we're going to do the same thing with the opposite orientation. So just start by putting the C point here. Line up your solid blue. And then go ahead and find the dot and adjust it. And then look up here. Yes, that sewing intersection is under my cutout. The dot is on the curve. So then I'm cut in the slot and trim off that little point, discard that. And now I have these two shapes that I'm keeping. So we're going to do that with all, let's see, are we doing that with all of these? Yes, we are doing that with all of those antler shapes. Here I have all of my pieces cut. And now we're going to do some more sewing. So now we're going to use the bee background shapes we cut. We're going to sew one of these to each of our pieces that we just trimmed. So for this, concave is on the bottom, so it's on the left side. We flip this one over. We're leaving a 1/4 inch tail and we're sewing that seam. When we do the other orientation, concave is still here. We flip that and it will look like this. So this is our next thing. We're going to sew these curves. Doing that. All right, again, 1/4 inch tail on the bee piece. And then same process, stitch a few stitches. Now hold one piece in each hand and bring together. The key here is to never actually take the bee piece and pull it straight. If you do that, there's a lot of bias and it'll stretch out. And you can see how nice that looks. Okay, let's do the other. And then for this one, we're going to press away from the focus towards the background. And that will really flatten out this seam up here where we have a lot going on in this intersection. So for this one, B is on the bottom again. Set it up. We have our 1/4 inch tail. And just like that. So I'm going to sew the rest of my curves here and then press, and then we'll talk about square up. All right, we have all of our sewing done. So now we are moving on and ready to square up our units. And the first ones we're squaring up are C and D. We're going to square them to 2 1/4 by 4. So first steps is to separate them into two sets that are the same orientation. So let's start with this one. I am using the Wonder Curve ruler, and first steps, we are putting the 2-inch mark on. Let me get this nice and close for you. 2-inch mark on the curved seam right at the top. And then over here, there's a blue dot on the Wonder Curve ruler. Go ahead and put that right on the curved seam. And then if you have directional fabric, you actually have the whole seam to play with. So I'm just kind of squaring it up. Now I'm going to, do I have enough fabric to get 2 1/4 by 4? Yes. So now I'm trimming 2 sides. Lift your ruler, rotate your block, put the ruler back down, and put 2 1/4 and 4 on your trimmed edges. 2 1/4 and 4, and then trim off whatever is left. All right. Now, the other orientation, let's do that same set of fabric. So this one, turn the page in your pattern, it is step 8 still. And now we have our 2-inch on the curve over here on the right side. And then the same blue dot is on the curve, the blue dot on the other side is up here on the curve. So I'm just making sure I get both of those. It's kind of lined up to my block fabric. Trim 2 sides. Rotate the block 180. Put trimmed edges on 4 and 2 1/4. Here's 4 and 2 1/4. And then trim off whatever is left. Okay, great. Now we're going to do that with all of your C and Ds. And then we also are squaring up our antler block or our H block. Can't remember why I got the letter H, but now it's called H. I don't know. We're just keeping you guessing sometimes. All right, let's start with this one. This one, just make it look like the pattern. So set it up how the pattern shows. Your point is going this direction. Put the 2-inch mark on this inside curved seam. Put the blue dot on the point. And then the blue dot over here should be close to the curved seam. This is the one that is the least important because you can hide where that lives in the seam allowance and it won't change the shape of your block. So point 2-inch here. I think this is the most important because that's going to line up with something else over here. So 2-inch for me is most important, and then this point, and then this one. That looks pretty good for me. I am a really physical sewer. Like I pull and push, even though I try not to. I know I do. We're making a 4-inch block. Trim 2 sides. Move your ruler out of the way, rotate your block. Now put trimmed edges, the ones you just trimmed, on the 4s, here and here. And go ahead and trim off whatever is left. And we get that really great block. All right, let's do the other direction. Okay, the other direction, the point is up here at the top. And we're going to start with the 2-inch mark on the curve. Put your point at the top, and then here my blue dot is actually pretty much on the inside, like it's on the focus fabric. So I'm just gonna, wiggle, kind of, yeah, that's better. That's better. Okay. So I don't know, it seems the same. And you know what? I know why, because I sewed some really skinny seams back here. So if you're kind of breaking down, why yours or mine didn't get in the right spot, you really have to be consistent with your 1/4-inch seams. But I know it's going to work out. I've sewed this block a lot. This is the most important, so I'm focusing there. Trim, trim, rotate. Now put trimmed edges on the 4s and trim whatever's left. I bet you can tell what part of the block that is. Okay. All right, go ahead and square up all of your curved pieces. All my blocks are squared up, so let me check what is next. We are going to add some snowball corners. Okay, so what we're doing here is, see this decorative element at the top of our allium block? We are going to make that, and then we're also going to add some snowball corners to the H blocks, H units. So these are 2 1/4 by 2 1/4. And to get this, it's just easier sometimes when you're making one of something. Just go ahead, lay it out. Get rid of all those reflections for you. So this is the top. I've got 2 yellows, a yellow, and here just be consistent with your stripes on the yellow. So if you have your stripes going this way, the stripes will actually end up this way. So and we can see that by, if you pretended you drew that and then folded that in half, here you can see your stripes end up going up and down. So that's kind of a little tip. So we have that. I'm going to do that on all of these. So I actually lay it out and then go ahead and draw my lines. That way I get, I know that it's the direction I want it to be. And did I do that the right way? No, I did not. All right, look at your pattern. All right, I'll use a nice dark one. All right, so we're trying to make this diamond shape. So we have to make our lines be in a diamond up here, or we're going to do it wrong. And we don't want to unpick. So I know that is a nice dark line. No, I normally would not do that for sewing, but it's important that you see what I'm doing here. Okay, we are going to sew right on that line, and then we'll trim 1/4 of an inch from it on this side, and then we'll press out. And then we'll do the same thing here. And we're going to set this up. Go ahead and make it look like what we're trying to create, which is this sphere. And then again, these, and I'm making my stripes go this way so that they end up this way. And you know, that's quilter talk. You get it. My stripes are this way, they're going to end up this way. Okay. Okay, same thing. Dry your lines. Go ahead and sew. Okay, I'm going to go do some straight sewing. We'll come back, talk about it. I have sewn on that line. So here's the one I drew with marker. No, I did not want to use that because I know it's going to show through, kind of, because I was keeping that mark. So now we're here. So now we're going to trim. So I'm trimming, and I just use my Sew Square 4 or something with 1/4 inch, and I just line that up and go ahead and trim. You're just trimming 1/4 inch away from your seam. And this is a really easy way to do snowball corners. You don't really have to even draw your line. If you have a laser on your machine or diagonal seam tape, which is what I use, that is another easy way to sew a bunch of angles, snowball corners, without having to go ahead and draw all those lines. So here I am pressing it out. What does it want me to do? Press seams open. If you press your seams open, it's going to flatten that out, and you're going to get, you won't lose as much of your snowball corner when you go out, so it doesn't end up being too short. So I will press those open, and then the same with these. We're going to trim, press open. All right, I am going to show you a design option because I always love to look at ways to make things with the same blocks a little bit different. So here we have our accent piece sewn together, and I sewed these together. So let me show you some options now. You can do it just how the pattern shows, which we think is fabulous. This goes here, that sews on top. Or you could actually put this in the middle. Or I think this is a great option. You could put these two like this, and then this one here. I actually really love this. I know I'm supposed to do it exactly like the pattern, but we already have 2 quilts exactly the same. Jenny made one and I made one. And I'm like, oh, I got to do something different. So this is where I'm going. Should I do it? I will, because nobody's here to tell me I can't. So yes, let me show you pressing. I actually pressed this snowball corner. I just pressed that seam towards the snowball, whereas this one I pressed open. So your choice. They just seemed to want to do that when I was working with these. And then I'm going to go ahead and sew it like this. Okay. I went ahead and sewed my new layout. Now, I don't know. I could remake this and have 2 reds, or have this side be yellow and this side be red. But it's great. It's a quilt. It's absolutely adorable. So I think it's fantastic. All right, next steps. We are going to add in our stem, but before we do that, we actually need to do some trimming. So we are going to trim 1/4 inch off each side of these last 2 H blocks. So the easiest way to trim off a quarter, we know this is 4 by 4, is to actually put this on and make it 3 3/4. So like this. That way you cover up the part you're keeping. Okay, I'm turning that because I need to cut off this side and set it up. Okay, now we are ready for sewing our leaf section together. Okay, it is time to sew our stem section together. And a couple things to note here. Here, these CD blocks, make sure that the long pointy sharp point is here. I started doing mine and I had it swapped like this. I don't know why. So don't make that mistake or you'll get to unpick like I did. Okay, so here, and then we have these units here that you're going to sew together first. Press seams open, and then you'll sew all 3 sections together. After they're sewn together, then we add the stem. All right, here I have each side sewn together, and then my stem. We'll go ahead and sew the stem in. A couple things to note. This seam here does not line up with this long petal. It's not supposed to. So if you're wondering if that's what happened, it's just how it's designed. And then, so go ahead and sew. I am going to, probably going to press my seams to the stem. Press seams, the pattern suggests pressing seams open. So decide, actually that might work well. It just depends on if you have too much bulk in areas. Here I have all the parts sewn together. I did press towards my stem. And then my last step is to sew these together. So I will do that next. Here is the Allium Block sewn together. So it works up pretty well. It should measure 7.5 by 25 inches. So this is a good place to like check your sewing. If it's a little long or a little short, you know, think about checking more often as you sew it together.